Hello and welcome to WWJPS. This is your host, Vanessa Pinto. All right, folks, today we are going to be going down our tinfoil hat road again. How many of you remember a man named John McAfee?
Is a conspiracy theory it's defined as the people within the U.S. government and military who are in secret control of government policy.
A little background on why it matters. John McAfee wasn't a normal person. What I mean is he's not like an everyday person. He actually developed software back in the day. I'm sure if you had, there was McAfee on every fucking computer. So this guy decided to give some free laptops away to some government secretaries that had a back door that he could basically spy on our government and see what was going on. Well, what he found is what he's about to talk about. And then he committed suicide, which is kind of odd.
Secret? Please, people. The deep state is those people within the U.S. government that are career employees that cannot be fired by people that we elect by the Congress or the President. There are the FCC, the CIA, the Securities and Exchange Commission, the IRS. Are these people in control? Can they enact laws? Fuck yes. They're called regulations. For every law that Congress passes, and we elect Congress to pass our laws, there are 20 regulations enacted by federal agencies that have far more impact on our lives.
Again, our elections and our elected officials are fucking actors, folks. They are actors. With the exception of Mondami and what's happening right now, because that's something no one anticipated, I don't think, an actual real fucking politician that isn't bought and sold and actually wants to help people. Let's see how long it lasts. I'm praying for Mondami. But this guy, so when he finds out, he gets this backdoor in, and what he's essentially discussing is that's when he found out about the human trafficking that the CIA is involved with. And again, these are all allegedly, this is my tinfoil hat days, it's conspiracy theorist time, and I am not at all suicidal. But essentially, he left the country. He started living in like Costa Rica, all these random places. Like he was just not even sleeping in the same house every night because they wanted him. They wanted him gone. He knew way too much.
Than anything Congress can possibly pass. Is there a deep state? Yes. Can we fire these people? No. Can presidents fire them? No. It's designed that way so that political parties and political interests.
And that was honestly JFK's entire problem. He, one, actually thought that he was the president of the United States and didn't realize that he didn't have much power, and that the more that he pressed and the more that he asked for, that essentially marked him for death. So understand, any of our politicians that are still in the game have sold out in some capacity. Sold out our souls, their souls, but they are not in that position unless they have done some dirty fucking shit, folks.
Cannot affect the deep state. Do you understand the nightmare of our situation, people? I'm sorry. It's not secret. It's as...
Yeah, so let's talk about his suicide. So John McAfee was eventually taken into custody, right? And he Epstein himself in his cell 3 hours before this building collapsed, right? So essentially he had a dead man's drop, or a dead man's, whatever they call that if he died, something was going to come out which proved all of his theories. He said that he had put it specifically in this one apartment that he had in Miami, right? Just keep that in mind.
So did you get to the scene? And we are about to start in about 10 minutes. We'll do our best. We brought our best people here, engineers.
Yeah, that's IDF soldiers, right? So 3 hours later, McAfee's Miami Surfside condo is destroyed. 2 days later, Israeli IDF investigators arrived to Miami to investigate the building collapse, right?
First responders, such a rescue population behavior, and I hope that we will succeed to help your people.
Did you see the scene?
Yeah.
And what does it look like? I mean,
And it's funny, you know, because they say when JFK files were supposed to come out, it's just been scrubbed of any names of the blue and white state. You know, the blue and white state that's about to merge with our military, like this little gentleman right here, the IDF, they're going to be part of our military and on our streets with our people. Thank God I don't live in that country. Again, not a fan of Charlie Kirk, the persona, but he, much like JFK, pissed these people off. And he also, much like JFK, thought he had more power or at least more likability, right? Charlie Kirk was a true believer who made a lot of money off the backs of disgusting statements he made in favor of racism, white nationalism, and every other fucking thing. But he was also a smart man, and he understood with the CIA and Israel and potentially other things that perhaps they weren't in our best interest, and also that perhaps the CIA was a little different than we
Intelligence agency is actively involved in mind manipulation of people here domestically. And that is completely against the CIA charter. You must understand.
So the mind control, and the reason I'm doing this episode prior, going full tinfoil hat on my IG, which so many people fucking give me shit for on Reddit, is because that mind control has not stopped. We just had hearings on MK-Ultra, but it is so beyond that. It is so beyond that. It's used in every facet of our American lives. And I'm going to go into that in our next episode. But I'm priming you all by letting you see where the cracks begin to surface.
We have Congress, and they're just kind of like a peanut gallery. And then we have a super government that exists above Congress of the Department of Defense, which is the Pentagon, the Central Intelligence Agency, which is its own thing out in Langley, the Federal Bureau of Investigation. They run the country. The intel agencies run.
They run the country. He's not wrong. He is absolutely not wrong. And that is why when you speak about that openly and you have a public record, they are going to take you out because the CIA doesn't give a shit about anything other than their agenda. Charlie Kirk got in the middle of their agenda. So did JFK. So did John Mack. All these other people that just, you know, commit suicide, right? Or just accidentally die. Now, we've all been there. You're just trying to look at a meme and suddenly the algorithm feeds you a clip about shadow governments, bloodlines, secret societies, and how nothing you see on the evening news is real. Well, that is exactly what we are doing today. It's what's on my IG roll, but mainly I am trying to prepare you for the research that I'm doing right now, which is specifically on mind control and the fact that I don't believe MK-Ultra was ever ended, and I think there's a lot more to it. So, grab your drink, get everyone ready. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Subscribing really helps the network and can keep us all going so that while I am here in Portugal, we can still live all our conspiracy theorist dreams. How many of you knew that the CIA is actually involved in a lot of our movies? One of Hollywood's most successful producers used to be an Israeli spy. But it's a little more than that, right? So his name is Arnon Milchan. Before Hollywood, he was an arms dealer who secretly helped procure technology for Israel's nuclear weapons program, the one that JFK wasn't happy with, the one that he wanted to send inspectors on. He used that money and those connections to build one of the most successful film careers ever. The same man tied to a secret nuclear program ended up shaping what millions watch on screen. And Israel courted Hollywood for decades. It offered filmmakers money, locations, and access, and even ran image liaisons tied to its military. The 1960 epic Exodus was made with full government cooperation. Israel's own founder called the source material a propaganda book. This is documented history. This is not a theory. And Israel isn't the only one. Through leaked documents, researchers found the Pentagon and CIA had editorial control over more than 2,500 films and shows. Want real tanks or jets in your movie? You send them your script. Don't like how they look? Change it or you get nothing. On Zero Dark 30, the CIA fed filmmakers inside details. Kidnapping, how torture was shown on screen, and it works exactly as intended. After the first Top Gun, Navy pilot recruitment reportedly jumped by 500%. That's the real payoff. A 2-hour film does what a $1 billion campaign cannot. You paid for a movie ticket they got a recruitment tool. Step back, and the pattern is everywhere. Governments don't just fight wars. They decide how those wars are remembered. Who's the hero? Who is the villain? Chosen before you ever bought a ticket, right? We all think we're under control, or our own control. Now, as this says, probably get up. Now, once the Freedom of Information Act was out there and they could no longer just say no, right? Whenever someone brings up mind control, people are always, oh, it's a conspiracy theory. Although now with MK-Ultra, that seems to be coming up quite a bit. Now, there is another one. I forget what it's called, but essentially it was with all of the newscasters of that time. Essentially, the newscasters were fed propaganda, right? Mainstream media, that's what we're talking about. It still exists to this day. They actually had to do an entire hearing. You have to look at some of their techniques, right?
Like destroying most of the files. They were torn and burned just days before the head of the agency was fired by then President Richard Nixon for refusing to help cover up Watergate. Beyond just mind control, declassified documents show the agency also chased a dark tool, discrediting, using drugs like LSD to make someone look insane, then watching the world turn on them. Sometimes the target was a
Sound like some of those scientists that have suddenly killed themselves for no reason, right? Or just disappeared, right?
Single person. Sometimes the target was a world leader like Fidel Castro. Some of the plots so outlandish they sound like Hollywood until you see them in black and white. One man so committed to transparency on this, he has spent his entire career hunting down, declassifying, and newly analyzing thousands of documents.
I'm starting to realize that the CIA pretty much has a hand in any sort of memory that any of us have regarding this entire country, right? How many of us look at the 60s, right? The flower power, the hippies, all of that time, Janis Joplin, all of the famous music, Woodstock, right? And then out of that came Charles Manson and the murders in the Hollywood Hills. Then all of a sudden that counterculture movement was deemed almost communist. It was deemed to have, seduced our minds, right? Because then they took these girls that murdered these people, and this man named Charles Manson just somehow did it, right? Or was he already part of MK-Ultra and really either had no idea or was being used specifically by the government to see what they could do? This also goes around the Laurel Canyon conspiracy theory, which we will get into in just.
Government ran a top-secret operation in your elementary school, and thousands of people from that program are claiming to share the same dream. While sleeping, they visit a place called Mall World. From the 80s to the early 2000s, schools across the U.S. had a program called GATE, Gifted and Talented Education. They took the smartest...
Yeah, I was in GATE. Truly was. And I was taken out of class. And what's funny is, I don't really even remember what the fuck we learned in there. I just was one of those fucking kids.
Kids out of class and brought them to a windowless trailer. And the internet has begun to piece together the foggy memory of what took place inside. They recall drinking a pink drink with a bubblegum flavor. This is a common way to mask medicine for children, so this really could have been anything. But people recalled feeling heavy and spaced out afterwards. Another common experience was being tested with Zener cards.
I don't remember if any of this happened, and I'm not even saying that as an anomaly. I know I was only involved in GATE for 1 year, and that's because my parents they just didn't see it was important. They wanted me around children more and to feel more regular and not excluded or treated differently in any way. So this I don't remember, but I was actually one of those fucking kids chosen. Thank God my parents didn't want me in there.
The kids were asked to guess the symbol on the other side of the card. This is a test to see if someone has extrasensory abilities like mind control or telekinesis. Then they'd put clunky headphones on the kids for an audio test.
Makes you think of Stranger Things. Makes you think of all the things that we see are things that are happening because they have to tell us.
Many who underwent these tests say they listened to the Monroe's Gateway Experience tapes.
This is the first step along your path to a gateway.
These tapes were also mentioned in a CIA document called Analysis and Assessment of Gateway Process. The creator of these tapes believed you could train yourself to have out-of-body experiences like astral projecting. It sounds like sci-fi, but
What's interesting is I actually learn more than anything else by listening. If I want to learn anything, I just have to hear it a certain amount of times and it's there, it's gone. But again, why did they do this? And why is it that in America, we love experimenting on our own people, even though we swear we don't spy on them, we don't experiment on them, but it keeps coming out that we do. It keeps coming out also, beyond the mind control, that there are things happening with children, that everything is corrupt, and that all the things that we have been shown came from someone else's imagination to serve an agenda that the American government, shadow government, wanted us to pursue.
CIA created Charles Manson, and they used him to change the culture. Manson had been in and out of prison for more than half of his life. He was so institutionalized that he once begged to stay in prison. Then, in 1967, the Summer of Love, a 32-year-old Manson found himself in Haight-Ashbury, the epicenter of the hippie movement and ground zero for an MK-Ultra project headed up by Jolly West, a psychiatrist that specialized in mind control and hypnosis. He also once killed an elephant by shooting it with a dart full of LSD, with the equivalent of 3,000 strong human doses. So of course Jolly was recruited by the CIA to build a fake hippie crash pad to observe and experiment on hippies. They were
This all happened. All of this happened. This is all documented, folks.
sourcing their human lab rats from the Haight-Ashbury Free Clinic, somewhere that Charles Manson would frequent. It's believed that he was one of the subjects of experiments centered around LSD-based control, sleep deprivation, and psychological torture. Then Charles Manson spent the next 2 years amassing a cult following using these exact tactics. Manson begins collecting female...
Well, and think about it, because during all of their trials, and even now when the women wanted, they wanted like medical relief because some of them were dying of cancer, compassionate relief, and they wouldn't let them out. And people didn't understand, how were these women, these normal girls from normal families, turned into these psychopathic murderers that never really came out of it, right? And we were just told it was this guy, Charlie Manson, right? Because, you know, anyone can do that.
shooting it with a dart full of LSD, with the equivalent of 3,000 strong human doses. So of course Jolly was recruited by the CIA to build a fake hippie crash pad to observe and experiment on hippies. They were sourcing their human lab rats from the Haight-Ashbury Free Clinic, somewhere that Charles Manson would frequent. It's believed that he was one of the subjects of experiments centered around LSD-based control, sleep deprivation, and psychological torture. Then Charles Manson spent the next 2 years amassing a cult following using these exact tactics. Manson begins collecting female followers one at a time using LSD-based control. Each new follower helps him recruit the next one. Manson's following would come to be known as the family. One day he takes 20 followers, loads them onto an old school bus, and heads south to Spawn Ranch, just outside of Los Angeles. Now completely isolated, Manson continued dosing them, giving them nightly sermons, and orchestrating group sex. At this time, Manson and the family seemed to operate with complete immunity from the law. In 1969, he was arrested 6 times. Weapons charges, grand theft auto, credit card fraud, and released every time. All this time, Manson was on federal parole, the strictest supervision possible.
Right? And yet he does all this on his own. This fractured man, this man that we call the Bengali, head of mind control. Or was it that he was the one mind controlled? And it was the government that did this because they wanted people afraid of counterculture, of that freedom and love and hippie. And so they made it and created it and destroyed it. The argument goes like this. Why hide your operations when you can put them right on? No. When people are looking at the current global narratives, whether it's constant border crisis, impending economic structural shifts, or the push towards cashless, programmable digital currencies, the internet doesn't see isolated political events. They see a synchronized script, a script designed to exhaust us until we say, just fix it. I really don't care how much freedom I give up, right? Mm-hmm.
It's how CIA smuggles gold, guns, drugs, cash, and small children.
Here I come. Oh.
This is Robert David Steele, former CIA officer, co-founder of the United States Marine Corps Intelligence Activity. He died after all this.
And coming back to this whole issue of war against the Russians, you know, this is all a fabrication. I mean, the Swedes were making up Russian submarines in order to get the public afraid of the Russians. It's not the Russians that have 1,000 military bases all over the seas, all over the world. It's the Americans. And by the way, the reason we have 1,000 military bases is not for military power. They're lily pads for smuggling. That is how CIA smuggles gold, guns, drugs, cash, and small children for the elites in the United States.
And if you're saying to me, Vanessa, you're being ridiculous, this is once again one of those theories. Really? Really? Then how did Jeffrey fucking Epstein exist? And
one of
why?
50 Mossad cells across this country. There's one in every state. And across every single state, we have governors and legislators who have been entrapped in pedophilia. They are on video.
So, the Epstein files were given to us to acknowledge and to confirm that the pedos in power, the pedophiles in power who eat, sacrifice children, because that happens, they're now on the road. We were given Epstein in order to be given these files, in order to see what was happening behind the curtain, right? We all got to see who was really the Wizard of Oz. And it turns out that the United States is one of the most corrupt governments ever, that we are highly involved in the trafficking and killing of children. Look at what's happening in the United States right now. How many kids are suddenly abandoned by migrant parents who are just taken? They're just abandoned. These kids weren't abandoned before the authorities got involved. How about all the kids in foster care who just disappear? Or the girls in Oprah's school? Or the models who got, by Naomi Campbell, or every other fucking thing that we do, because apparently in order to have power, you need to be disgusting and murderous. And really a big fan of the blue and white state.
Doing bad things to small children. That's how the Zionists got 27 states to make it a felony to call for a boycott of Israel. We have a fraudulent...
P.S. That's not a joke. Also, be very careful with what you're posting in the States, because Bibi Netanyahu wants to make any commentary about Israel anti-Semitic and illegal. And he did it in the UK. All of you need to be paying attention to that. But it's happening.
Form of capitalism, which is basically a Ponzi scheme, an absolute fabrication of wealth by the Rothschilds and others. And in fact, the SWIFT system transfers fraud, because the Rothschilds can pretend to have $3 billion in Austria and have it wired to a bank in New York, which accepts it as if it were real. They don't actually look to see if that $3 billion is backed up by anything. And then the Rothschilds will use that $3 billion in fake money to buy real estate and other.
Now, when you think of that, really think about how many times have we been told we're printing money? How many times have we been told what our deficit is? How many times is it that the central banks control everything, which is why there's the new push now for the New World Order, because they don't want to fucking hide it anymore. They just want to be in control, period. That's why countries that did not join them, Iran, Iraq, Cuba, Venezuela, starting to sound familiar? Maybe like all the countries that we target that we say are horrendous and awful characters. Really, it's just that they don't want to fucking give it up, and good for them. Good for fucking them.
Other assets, including gold. Multiple government agencies have offshore illegal accounts, starting with the CIA and Treasury. These are rooted in gold that we captured from the Japanese. I want to point out to people.
Think about every fucking war and how much we've stolen. Go back and look at what we took in Iraq. Go back and look at that. We are the biggest, disgusting thieves. America, and I'm so fucking ashamed to be an American. Now, of course, every great conspiracy ecosystem has its martyrs, like we saw McAfee, Kirk, JFK. When someone inside the machine starts tweeting warnings, dropping dead man switches, or talking about offshore files, the official reports always point to a tidy, neat explanation. Heart attacks, tragic accidents, standard legal troubles, right? So, for decades, the playbook was simple. Control the news networks, fund the academic studies, filter the Hollywood scripts, and manage the narrative. If an embarrassing leak happened, buried it on page 24 and label it as a fringe conspiracy.
Now, Israel, the Zionists, CIA, and Saudi Arabia are the three devils that need to be put back in a very small box. So we're essentially looking at the U.S. deep state wants a war with North Korea and a war in the Middle East and a war with China over the Spratly Islands. Goldman Sachs desperately needs a war in the Middle East to drive the price of oil up, or they're going to lose billions and billions of dollars on their bad bets. ISIS was created with money from Saudi Arabia, trading from CIA, and weapons from the Pentagon. ISIS is a wholly owned subsidiary of the U.S. deep state. So from the end of World War II, the United States of America has institutionalized evil, and the U.S. government has been a wholly controlled subsidiary of Wall Street. Now,
that man is not lying. Every word he's speaking is the absolute truth, and I think most of you know that at this point. And again, this is all in my opinion. This is alleged, and I am no way Susan. You don't have to believe me. Do the research yourself like I did. Again, a person doesn't drop out of law school, leave the country that she's been born in, and actually love a good portion of her life because she doesn't believe any of this shit. And because I just suddenly became a conspiracy theorist. All this shit has roots. It all has evidence. And it's really just what you have to ask yourself is, am I really gonna fucking still eat this propaganda that I've been fed since I was born, that I didn't even know I was being fed? That I didn't even know was all a fucking lie, and that this country and going to Mars and going to the moon and all of our bullshit has all just been an elaborate dance that we could all clap for.
This country. And in fact, the SWIFT system transfers fraud because the Rothschilds can pretend to have $3 billion in Austria and have it wired to a bank in New York, which accepts it as if it were real. They don't actually look to see if that $3 billion is backed up by anything. And then
I'll end this with a little bit of hope. Other than Thomas Massey, let's see, Mondami, I think that's about it. They're the only ones that are really being honest about what's happening. For God's sake, Mitch McConnell's still alive. Yeah, right. So, let's hear what one politician just said that verifies what we've just been talking about today and finally shows that people are fucking saying this shit out loud, and they absolutely should be.
Fox News just had to abruptly end a segment with a Democrat who started saying the honest truth about Donald Trump.
What is the number that is fine with you? Is there a benchmark? Is it fine? How many children can be raped and it's fine if you're in relation to the immigration community?
If we're going to talk about children being raped, then we need to hold this pedophile president, Donald Trump, accountable, and all those that have been implicated by the Epstein files that the Department of Justice is still not leaking. They've sent AIPAC after Thomas Massey for having the...
Get that man a fucking award. And first of all, Fox News, fuck you for even putting that on there. Because I love that they love to talk about the rapists and the pedophiles that are the immigrants when they are absolutely not. It is the white fucking men, billionaires in charge. They're the ones raping kids. They are the ones in power, and nobody talks about it enough. Thank God for this man.
Temerity to hold accountable the pedophiles that are in control of our government.
Thank you. We appreciate your time very much.
Obviously, Fox News won't be having him back on the air anytime soon.
Oliver Larkin, Democrat for Congress. God bless you. All right, folks, I will be back with another episode. We're going to go heavy-handed into the mind control. It's going to be a long one, but this was just to get you prepped for it. All right, folks, have a good one and subscribe.